Hi everyone, my name's Rebecca Fing and I'm here today to welcome you to the first webinar of the Thrive program, a program around personal effectiveness, communication, time management and organisation, brought to you by Tocal College with the support of Ag Skilled, which is an industry-led workforce development program funded by New South Wales Government for the cotton and grains industry. By way of a welcome, introducing myself, my name is Beck Bing, as I suggested. I have a training and consulting business based in Gundawindi, and you may have heard along the way through some administrative channels from Heidi Smith. Heidi is based in Tamworth with Swift Consulting and will be a trainer on the program and also look after the back end of Thrive as well. By way of the program outline, we are going to have two parts to this webinar, and then that's going to give you hopefully the skills and confidence to do some pre-course work, which is a workbook that will be downloaded from the Canvas platform, which is where you found this webinar. And then we're going to follow up with our two-day workshop, which hopefully you've received all the information about, followed by some post-course work, and we'll get you to look at towards getting a letter of support from someone who can validate some of your skills in this area. We are doing accredited training through the Thrive program, which means that at the end of the process, you will receive 3 units of competency. They're around that personal effectiveness space, so looking at managing your own personal work priorities and professional development, looking at some skills in establishing networks, and that's where we'll embed the communication material. And given we're on the juggling act of life, time management for small business is a great unit to look at that. As a result of being accredited training, we will be doing some assessment tasks. They will be done in a supported environment, so definitely no need to stress about that. We are doing the Precourse Workbook, which I mentioned earlier, and you'll be able to download. We will do a workbook throughout the workshop. We'll do some activities, which will also be accessible, and then again have a look at some post-course workplace activities, and then a letter of support, but more about the latter for assessment tasks in the workshop. So don't stress too much about those. By way of acknowledgement, this program has been made possible through funding of Ag Skilled, the New South Wales Government program that has been supported by Cotton Australia and GRDC to bring accredited training to the cotton and grains industry. Tocal College is the RTO, or the training organisation that owns and manages Thrive, for which we have the privilege of being able to deliver to you guys. I just wanted to, we'll hook straight in and have a look at some of this content. I wanted to give credit where it's due here. I'm not sure if anyone who's listening on has had experience with Stephen Covey's work, but basically Covey talks about 7 habits of highly effective people. And when we were putting together this content for a similar program, we realised that the interests and material that was sought for this space really does follow those 7 habits. Firstly, we need to have a look at our own personal effectiveness by being proactive and planning and prioritising, which is those first 3 habits. That will give us the opportunity to be able to manage ourselves. After we've done that, we can then take the opportunity to work with others, which is through looking to negotiate, looking to effectively communicate, and hopefully for 1 + 1 to equal 3. Surrounding all of those habits is that requirement to keep our saw sharp. So really ensure we are maintaining our own personal effectiveness and our personal growth in whatever field that we exist in. So I put that up. I know that you didn't sign up for 7 habits of highly effective people, but I'm also mindful that that this material really does mirror some of the work that Covey has pioneered in this space. Just by way of a heads up, we're going to talk and refer to exercises in the pre-course workbook throughout this webinar. So if you'd like to take a minute to download that workbook, you'll be able to make some notes as we go. So I'm going to hook straight into the content now. We're going to talk for a few moments around your values and really understanding your core values and those of your business as a bit of a platform and a starting place to start having a think about where we're going to spend time, what relationships we're going to develop, and also will give us a framework for setting some goals. Why are values so important? It's essential that we understand our values for a number of reasons. Our values really are like a skeleton that holds us together. They are very usually consistent and long-term. Some of our values may well have been inherited. Say, for example, you come from a hardworking family. A value you hold might be that around hard work and, say, persistence. The flip side of that, sometimes our inheritance can suggest an opposite value. Say, for example, or might be at odds with our values. Say, for example, you were the son or the daughter of a con artist. You may now hold honesty and integrity as one of your highest values because you didn't necessarily like the way that unfolded. As well as that, our environment throughout the years can definitely frame up our values as well. They are long-term. Sometimes crisis or change in stage in life will sometimes will make changes to our values, but usually they're quite consistent and long-term. Why they're really important in this instance is they give us the opportunity to set some direction, and they'll often guide us and keep us on track. When we talk about things that are on our plate in our life, quite often they'll be consistent with the things that form part of our values. For example, if community is important to you, you might have some things that are taking your time in the community, whereby family is important. Similarly, as a core value, you'd hope that family was reflected in your goals and where you spend your time. Where they are equally important in this process is around allowing us to make decisions and shape our action based on the things that are truly important to us. The other reason why they're important, if you have a think back through history, a lot of conflict arises where someone's needs or values are not aligned, where you might be able to think of a relationship or even a professional endeavour that didn't necessarily go so well. And if you think back, quite often was because there was a misalignment of values. The reason it's important is because if we have an understanding of our values, we'll be able to predict our behaviour in a certain environment, but also predict the behaviour of those around us as well. It'll give us an opportunity to monitor and understand why conflict may arise. If you're in a space where you're employing people and understand the core values of your business, by putting them on notice through that recruitment process and the onboarding process, it'll ensure that people are comfortable with what your expectations are around values, and hopefully it'll give you the opportunity to attract like-minded people into your business. The flip side of that, while we either directly or indirectly socialise with people of similar values, we often do need to work with people who don't have the same values as us. The other thing, obviously we're in a dynamic society where we have pressures and expectations, where sometimes we may not make decisions that we are comfortable with, and they may well not be values-based decisions, where sometimes going with the flow might be the easier option, or furthermore, where things like time or even finances or fatigue have forced us to make a decision that may not have been in line with our values. Similarly, we may find ourselves in a situation where it doesn't really sit right or feel right, but at the end of the day, rocking the boat mightn't necessarily be the easiest decision to make, so we seem to go with the flow because it's too hard. We put harmony over our values. The other reason why understanding our values is critically important is because if we're authentic to ourselves, our values will underpin the way we do business. They will underpin the way we interact in our community and family and social circles. They will predict our actions, but most importantly, they will predict or determine our reputation. Those who are based in regional communities would be comfortable and hopefully agree with me that if someone new was to move to town and you knew someone in the community they came from, you could quite quickly understand or get a handle on that person's core values by asking sort of 4 or 5 words. Like, apparently Joe's moving to town. What's he like? Oh, yeah, he's hardworking, good value, family-minded sort of bloke, but he's pretty driven. If Joe is an authentic type of character, those words will reflect his values. That being said, we can also think of our values. If we do want to be true to ourselves, we can think about, and this is part of the exercise that we're going to have a look at, we can have a think about if we got to our 80th birthday, or even from a business perspective, the 25th anniversary of the company, and what would be 5 words that would be used in the opening address or speech at that event. Let's think a little bit morbidly and start thinking about the words we'd like to have be seen in our eulogy. What would be 5 words that we would like to see, or like to be remembered for? And again, if we do have an authentic approach to our lives, hopefully those words really do reflect our core value. The reason this is critically important is because if we have the opportunity to know and understand ourselves, we can give ourselves the best opportunity to manage ourselves. And by doing that, as we move forward in a journey or position of leadership in our community, family or business, having the ability to manage ourselves will give us the opportunity to manage others. I'd like you to take a look in the workbook, and there's some exercises in there around understanding your core values. And why this is critically important at this point, where you're probably thinking, where does all of this fit? By us understanding what our core values are, we can then use it as the first layer to have a look. And we're going to build quite a few layers through the process. Have a look at the first layers as to why and where we're going to set some goals, but also have a look at where we're spending our time. And once when we go through the journey of the Thrive program, this will all continue to make sense when we talk about our values by way of ensuring our priorities where we're giving our time to is in line with our values. We can make sure and use our values as a ready reckoner for goal setting, but we can also use our values to understand and predict conflict and manage conflict when we start talking about conflict and negotiation throughout the workshop process. So we will come back to this core values exercise. So thank you for taking the time to work on it before the workshop and bring it along with you. we've also uploaded onto Canvas another quick enrichment activity. There's no need for you to do this if you don't see it as having any benefit, and definitely no need for it to be brought into the workshop. But the Wheel of Happiness is quite a clever a process where you can just print off the template. There's some questions on the second page to allow you to understand on a scale of 1 to 10 those different parts of your life, those different spokes. And what it can do is give you the opportunity to have a look at the areas you're most satisfied in your life, but also least satisfied. And I think if you ranked a score lower than you're happy with, where the best opportunity exists is for you to write an action plan to decide how to increase the score in that particular area of your life. I'm going to leave it here for a while. I'd like you to, if take the time to do the values exercise, and then once you've had a chance to look at that, have a look at the next webinar where we're going to talk about some goal setting. So that's it from me for a bit. So thanks for chiming in, and thanks also in advance for listening to the next part of the webinar. Talk to you soon.